In the penultimate episode of Yellowjackets Season 3, titled How the Story Ends, we're left hanging on the edge of our seats, desperately trying to piece together what is really happening in the increasingly tense world of the Yellowjackets. But just as Van reminds us, what's the fun in that? We're forced to wait for the final piece of the puzzle until the season finale. And honestly, at this point, with 3 major characters already dead this season, can we even expect a satisfying conclusion? Or are we being fed a carefully orchestrated lie to keep us hooked until the end? As the show drags us into yet another emotionally intense and chaotic episode, we can't help but ask, who is really left standing at the end of it all? Welcome back to your nerdy show. I'm your host, Spoiler Master. In today's video, we will dive into the 9th episode of Yellowjackets Season 3. So let's begin.
You sure this is the move you want to make?
Don't do anything stupid, Shauna.
What happens to Kodi? The episode begins with a major split in the group. Shauna, the group's ever-dominant leader, insists that they can't leave, causing a rift between those who still trust her and those who think she's lost her mind. Nat, among others, is skeptical. Meanwhile, Kodi and Hanna are trapped in an animal pen, waiting for their fate to be decided. Kodi, desperate to get away, tries to walk out, claiming his right to leave, but Shauna pulls out a gun to stop him. She doesn't shoot, but he's clearly skeptical of her ability to follow through. What's interesting here is that despite Shauna's aggressive approach, the group is split on how to survive. Ty, ever the optimist, believes they can survive another winter in the wild, but Van quickly shoots down that idea, knowing the group will soon run out of food. The situation is dire, and the pressure is mounting. In the meantime, Misty, always playing both sides, offers to act as a double agent. She plans to infiltrate the opposing group to get information and figure out their next move. Shauna and Ty are initially hesitant, but they eventually agree. This is Misty's chance to prove she can be trusted, and we know that when it comes to Misty, things are rarely what they seem. Meanwhile, Travis, in a fit of rage, plans to kill Lottie by leading her into a trap. He's furious that she prevented the group from being rescued earlier. However, Lottie walks right into the trap without any issue, almost as though she knew it was coming. She's not fazed, and in fact, she tells Travis that the only thing she needed him to know was that Javi had been alive this whole time. This revelation is enough to make Travis rethink everything he's known and believed about Lottie. As tensions rise within the group, Shauna finds herself at odds with Melissa, who's chatting with Hanna. Shauna, in a moment of spite, calls Melissa a nothing in front of everyone. Melissa, unflinching, dares Shauna to do something about it, which leads to an intense moment where Shauna pulls the trigger on Melissa. The bullet only grazes Melissa's jacket, and Shauna, humiliated, ends up wetting herself in the process. It's a surreal and terrifying moment that shows just how far Shauna has fallen from the person she used to be. The escape plan unravels. As the episode continues, Nat and Jen hatch a plan to help Kodi and Hanna escape. They give them a knife to cut themselves free, but it quickly becomes clear that there's something off about Kodi. Hanna catches on, questioning him about a name she saw on his bag, Eric Chong. Kodi claims it's nothing, just a thrifted item, but it's obvious he's hiding something. Could Kodi have been part of another cult or group? Is he just another player in this twisted game of survival? At the same time, the pressure is mounting as the escape plan unfolds. When night falls, Hanna makes a shocking decision. She betrays her previous allies and sides with Shauna, stabbing Kodi in the eye in the process. His death seals their escape, but it also marks a dramatic turning point. Hanna's actions are cold and calculated, which makes you wonder, what happened to the girl we thought was just a scared victim? In another shocking twist, Misty finds Van in a moment of despair, fiddling with a broken transmitter phone that Kodi and Hanna had previously destroyed. She figures out that this may be the key to everything, including figuring out whether Lottie was really killed by Shauna. But before she can share her findings, the episode cuts to an emotional moment between Nat and Misty, leaving us hanging on whether Misty's discoveries will be enough to piece together the puzzle. Who dies, Melissa or Van? Now things take a grim turn as we switch between older Van in a hospital bed and younger Van acting as her caregiver. The two versions of Van share an eerie connection, with younger Van reminding the older version of the movie Goonies and encouraging her to survive and fight on. She tells Van that she needs to be the hero, and as we soon find out, this will be a life or death decision. Back in the wilderness, Melissa's actions grow increasingly dangerous. She eats her own skin, but then spits it out in a desperate attempt to flee. In an unsettling moment, she tries to make a run for it, but she doesn't get very far. Van, Ty, and Misty eventually catch up to her, cornering her in a moment of desperation. Melissa's car barely has enough gas to escape, but she ends up stuck in the middle of nowhere, and things take a violent turn. In an intense moment, Van, Ty, and Misty capture Melissa, tie her up, and take her back to their home. However, it's clear that they've made a critical mistake by telling her too much. As Melissa listens to their confessions, she manages to get her hands on a knife and uses it to kill Van. In a heart-wrenching moment, Melissa drives the knife into Van's chest, leaving her to die. Van, who had always been the voice of reason and the protector of the group, is gone. The loss is devastating for Ty, especially considering the emotional connection they shared. In the final moments of Van's death, we see older Van and younger Van communicating across time, with the older Van asking why she had to die when she knew the outcome all along. Younger Van reveals that she did it because Van had to be the hero, saving the rest of the girls, even at the cost of her own life. The fallout from Van's death. The aftermath of Van's death is nothing short of chaotic. Ty, devastated by the loss of her friend, struggles with her own identity and what her role is in the group now. She's left to carry on without the person who grounded her, the person who had always been there to bring her back from the brink of madness. Ty's grief is palpable, and we can see how deeply Van's death affects her. Meanwhile, Melissa, in a cold and calculated move, escapes and makes her way back to the house. Her actions throughout the episode suggest that she may be more involved in Lottie's death than anyone initially suspected. Could she have been working with someone on the outside? Or is she truly just a twisted part of the group's tangled web? At the same time, we can't help but wonder, what did Misty find on Walter's phone? Is he the one who killed Lottie? Or is he just another pawn in this game of survival and betrayal? The questions surrounding Walter's involvement remain unanswered, and it's clear that Misty's suspicions are only growing stronger. Our nerdy thoughts. As Yellowjackets barrels toward its explosive finale, it's impossible to know who will make it out alive. With Van's death, the group's dynamic has shifted dramatically, and everyone is now playing their own game of survival. What does it mean for the remaining girls? Will they continue to rely on each other, or has the weight of their past actions irreparably fractured their bond? The suspense is building, and with only one episode left, there's no telling what will happen next. But one thing is clear, the end of Yellowjackets. Season 3 will leave us with more questions than answers, and we can't wait to see how this twisted story wraps up.